So there's Mike and Sarah and Dawn. And we're also filming this on webcam, so it's just like all kinds of things going on. Isn't this amazing?
All right.
So what people here can see on the screen, and what I emailed Omar is this template here. And so basically this is kind of like a really crude, this is sort of the purpose of the training, is to kind of fill in these different pieces for the lesson plan. Okay. And so you'll see there's like the math skill, reading skill, and writing skill. That's the first top portion. So what we're going to try to do today, we last night we did a training with about 10 different principals here, and we weren't able to kind of get to them actually doing the lesson plan, but you guys can kind of, meet and go over that on your own, if we're not able to get to it. But basically we want to pick one math skill, one reading skill, and one writing skill for kind of each group of students. And like, I think you guys here, Omar is at Akarama, and they have 2 students so far. You guys have 4 students so far, plus some other old hats that will probably come. And then you guys have 5, plus hopefully 7. Yeah. So once you guys get a good attendance list, then you guys can split them up into these groups. We call it beginner, intermediate, and advanced, but it really doesn't even have to be that. It could just be whatever skill, grammar, spelling and vocab. That doesn't have to be necessarily like the same skill at different levels, but it could be for sure. And then so what we're going to do next, you can see we've got the math class list on the next page, the reading class list, the writing class list, just so you guys can keep track of who's kind of in those teams and who's going to be working on those various skills. And then finally, just so week 1, so what kinds of activities are you guys going to be doing for each group of students? So it's pretty. I hope.
Hey, Jamie?
Yep.
Real quick, I actually don't have that template. You sent me the 3 results and the 3-minute reading assessments. That's all that you. That's all.
I'll go ahead and do that right now. And this part will be edited out.
Thanks, Alan.
No one can see you doing this.
Yeah. No. So. Okay, so I just detach that.
I think it's funny how there's a couple people there all this much.
Network. Alright, that's almost on its way. Okay, there you go. So that's that. Okay, that's not helpful. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about the template for the planning? You guys can change this. I'm going to email this as a Word document so you can, I think someone last night was suggesting adding like color, so like, green, red, and blue, or whatever, to instead of beginner, intermediate, and advanced.
Yeah, my question is just, so what are the first 3 boxes for?
So, that's to pick what skill you want to highlight. And that's really important because I think the tendency, even in the Saturday University, and I guess like sort of how we kind of started, was just like do an assessment and then just teach, but you kind of need to, in this term, since you're given 8 weeks, really focus in on one particular thing, so that we can kind of see some growth.
Like number sense, for example?
Yeah. And so like on the assessments are kind of split up on skills bands. And we'll see that actually, okay, so now we kind of, and actually Larissa, the principal here, should be here soon. But she emailed me, she said she's going to be late. Oh. So we've got up here, little, so you can kind of tell, here, we're going to, okay. Okay, so here, you know, we can get rid of this a little bit. I'm looking at the reading results here.
Mhm.
Dang it, no I'm not. Yeah, I switched these. So we just copied and pasted in a lot of the headings because you couldn't see them on the printed version. So again, this will be edited out. So yeah, I got these switched. But we want to look at the reading first. So once I get that together, and then okay. So now we have the reading. So you can see that the first and this is all switched here. Okay. So you can see that we first got Michael Greggs, and he is in 4th grade, and the first one is a words per minute score, and you're looking at the Akarama, but you can kind of maybe follow along with just you've got the student name, the grade, let's just say facility, and then this is their words per minute. This is their column. And the next one I'm going to pull up is what I sent to Omar, and what's kind of in our our reading assessment books is just this rubric that we have that kind of shows kind of where kids should be at, how many words per minute they should be reading. So let me pull that up. And that's on this really handy page, this final page here. Okay, so if you can see this part here. So you can see that in 4th grade, Michael should be reading, in the winter about 180 to 130 words per minute. So if we go back to the spreadsheet here, it looks like he's reading just about at that level. So that's good. And then we go on and, from the assessments, you can remember that they judge the word recognition, expression, phrasing and intonation, smoothness, pace, and these are all a percentage. So it's, usually it should be like 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4, et cetera, but it looks like there were some anomalies in here that I'm not sure how they showed up, but generally it'll be a lot of 0.25, a lot of 5. It looks like you guys are right on track there. And I think so. The two really important numbers that we want to look at are the comprehension score and the words per minute score. And also you'll notice that there are some zeros, and that means that the student did not take the reading portion, because usually they would have at least a 1 on something. But the words per minute and the comprehension scores are going to be really important in determining kind of what skill we want to focus on. So do we want to focus more on fluency? Are the students behind on their words per minute, or are they struggling with kind of word level material? Are they struggling with sight words, or things even at the sentence level, like just not reading punctuation at all? Or are they more kind of on the comprehension side? Do they need more help just understanding what's being read to them or what they're reading? So those are the two kind of main things that I look at. And just so you know, I've done this, just a handful of times, and by no means am I the expert. But that's kind of what we start with. So the reading skill, what we're trying to do is find students who are kind of similar. So we've got Michael Greggs here. I can get rid of this, as we all know, it's Black Star. So we got Michael Greggs. We got some people up in the hundreds, but then we got some people even in the 70s, 20s. So I might even kind of group those, pick the sort of lowest, the students who are reading the slowest, and group them together. and also pay a little bit of attention to their grade level, because obviously, you know, a third grader's going to be reading at a different level than a seventh grader, so they might be reading slower, but they might be kind of right on grade level. So that's kind of how I would start grouping them. And another complication for this site is that we have actually two sites with like older and younger students, but I'm not gonna parse that out quite yet. So that's kind of where I'd start. But it looks like people are kind of reading, you know, generally pretty well. This word recognition score, that shows. So when we do the reading test, we show how many words correct per minute over the total words that they're reading, and so that gives us a decimal, and that's what this decimal is. So we got Denidra Lee. She read 152 words correct over 100. You know, so she didn't make any mistakes while reading. Whereas let's see, you know, Clark here, he read, you know, probably around, you know, 120 words total, but he missed a few. So that's another thing to take into consideration. If they read really fast, but don't understand, you know, just kind of skip over words that they don't understand, that probably means that they really need some phonetic help, right? So that's something to take into consideration too. So definitely these students who are reading below 100 words per minute, I'd put them in kind of a group where you're working on some word level stuff, just decoding words, trying to give them some tools to figure out what words they, you know, what words are, and how to sound them out and how to pronounce them. And then you kind of swing over to the comprehension side a little bit. So kind of, I guess, who's left? You know, you might want to pick out people who scored higher on the comprehension and put them maybe in a more advanced class. And then, you know, people scored, you know, 42 or 33%, 17%, you might put them in kind of an intermediate class. And again, you know, none of this is to say that, like, you're not gonna, if a student is working on comprehension, you're not gonna work on pronouncing words and sounding out words and stuff, because that's crazy. You know, if a student needs help with a word, you know, you're gonna help them. And likewise, if you're reading with the beginning students, you know, I mean, just the natural thing to do, even just to, you know, make time go by, is to ask them if they understood what they read, if they like what they read. So all of these things are very complementary, but we're just trying to get, you know, some focus, some idea about what the focus is on for these individual students and for these groups, and to kind of, you know, create some structure in the site. So that's reading. Is there any questions on the reading and picking students out there? Okay. So my least favorite is writing. And the reason that writing is my least favorite is because it's so hard to teach in, let's see. Yeah, that's real. Hold on 1 second. Is that it? No, yeah, okay. No, that's wrong. Okay, anyway. So the point is, and Omar is laughing at me, but because he can't see the intense struggle that I'm dealing with. Here we go. And I'm afraid, yeah, okay, so we're good. So you can see the topics here up top are spelling, grammar, sentence fluency, word choice. And these are the things that we grade for on the writing assessment. But the reason it's so hard to kind of judge where the students are with their writing is because it's very hard to teach writing. And so a lot of the students are just, you know, pretty across the board. I mean, I don't know how to write, you know. So it's just really hard to teach, and it's really hard to teach in kind of a big classroom. And then especially like our assessment, you know, it's hard to get a really good gauge of like where the students are just by asking them to kind of casually write a paragraph, right? So we can kind of get some idea, but a lot of the students kind of stick with what they're comfortable and don't really challenge themselves, and so it's really difficult. So we grade these assessments pretty harshly. There's just a lot of 1s, a lot of 2s out of 4, but it doesn't it only means that we have a small sample size, and a lot of students don't necessarily take it super seriously, and so one of the sort of common things is that organization is really a real common problem, which is organization in writing is it's pretty difficult skill to learn. But what I tend to focus on, and this actually should say vocabulary instead of word choice. So I tend to focus on the vocabulary, the spelling, and the grammar and punctuation. A lot of times, just out of it's a lot easier to teach those 3 things. So it's a lot easier to come up with like exciting activities for those things. I think organization, you could come up with some pretty, I don't know, exciting, but you can come up with some activities for organization. But with spelling, grammar, punctuation, vocabulary, you can get really interactive with those skills. So just out of necessity, those are, some of the ones that I look at. Plus, those are a little more basic, and you can kind of see a lot more growth quickly, and it kind of gives students confidence that they've achieved something after they kind of hit that easy home run.
By and large, the writing test that we administer is, it's not a perfect exam, but what it is designed to do is to highlight grammar and punctuation, spelling, and their word choice specifically. Those are the things that really will jump out at you if you're analyzing the exam. And so, truth be told, they're the things that you can speak to in your 9-10 weeks with the students themselves. And then, you can try to work in things like organization and sentence fluency, but for the most part, we want to stick to what the test itself can show us as instructors. It shows us incorrect words being spelled. It shows us misuse of certain words. It shows us lack of grammatical structure or use of punctuation. So those are the things that we expect you to teach. Not because those other things aren't important, but those are the things that the writing test can actually bring out and show us that they're deficient in. Does that make sense?
And so, and also I guess another deficiency with the assessment is that it's only out of 4. So each sort of category is out of 4. So you're going to see not a whole lot of differentiation. So, but really it's just kind of a use your best judgment. And again, writing, as you guys know, it's really hard to isolate sort of one writing skill, because if you're having students writing for practice or like reading other people's good writing, you address other issues that they have. So if they spell something wrong, you're not gonna like skip over that just because you're working on grammar and punctuation. You'll address it and kind of move on and get to the heart of it. And again, this isn't like set in stone. Like, even if you set the student into a spelling class and you realize later that actually, he's just having an off day and he's a spelling whiz, you can move them around. But this is just to kind of like get started based on the assessments. So then, let's see, finally, we have the math assessment. And, we'll kind of like, maybe I'll just address some of the imperfections. What is going on here? Yeah. So there's also, okay, there's something going on with my data here. It's all scrambled. Yeah, it does sound like Omar's underwater. Yeah, so basically it's number sense. I think operations is missing here, so we'll just plug that in. I'm not sure if these are like the right numbers, but it's just an example. So basically when we first started doing this, it was kind of out of necessity because we started the Kimberly Lightford Saturday University and we had 100 students and they all had to like switch classes and they had to have like different snacks at different times and things. And so just like logistically we had to place them in different classes. And since we had the diagnostic, it just made sense to kind of look at the diagnostic test to kind of place them, you know, as best we could into classes. So, you know, that being said, the assessment is not a perfect test, as you probably are well aware. You know, first of all, it covers a pretty wide grade range, so it's pretty difficult for younger students. And then also I think like the Saturday University atmosphere doesn't really lend itself well to students really sitting and being serious with an assessment. I think it's a good place for learning, but with assessments it's really hard to get kids to kind of focus when they're like there's toys on the wall and games and stuff. And so I think some of the I know a lot of the students will do like young Ravana English did here. She, you know, touches on the number sense and operations, and then it gets to fractions, and then there's nothing. That's really, really common, actually. Do we have a battery for this plug-in? Huh?
Yeah, we do. I'll get it for you.
Okay, because it's just, there's 8%. Okay, go ahead. All right. Whew. So that's really common, and of course it doesn't mean that like Ravana doesn't know anything about fractions. It means that she's probably uncomfortable with fractions, because if she was really comfortable with it, she'd breeze right through it and then skip on, you know, hit the next thing that was difficult. And so, you know, that is some information. We do get a lot of low scores, as you can kind of see, at the fractions area. And then also at algebra too, but again, you know, some of the students are younger, so they're kind of not familiar with those concepts. So fractions and decimals are usually pretty abysmal. And I tend to group these skills kind of together instead of just picking like operations or number sense or fractions or decimals. I tend to do, you know, if I were to place kids, I would try to group them in number sense operations together, because those are kind of, you know, around the same. Fractions, decimals together. I think we got time and money and statistics together, and then algebra and word problems, and then geometry is on its own. So feel free to do that too, just because again, you know, if the diagnostic is kind of like wrong, or you know we diagnose them incorrectly, we don't want to kind of like move everyone around, you know. Let's see if we can. Okay. So here. Oh no, that's the wrong thing. Anyway, this is what I get for trying to do something cool. So basically, what I would try to do is, you know, find where the lowest numbers are, kind of pick out those students that didn't do the test at all, find where the lowest numbers are, and then just take a look at it. And I think I use this example with the assessments a lot when we're doing the assessment training. But you know, if a student, you know, you might see that 17 is the lowest. Well, let's give Mr. Travell Arndt a look. So you can see that 17 scored 17% on the fractions, and so you might think, oh well, you know, we'll place him in fractions class. But then you kind of look over at operations and number sense, and in 5th grade, you know, even though it is a 3rd through 7th grade test, really they should be pretty well mastering those number sense and operation skills, especially, you know. So my inclination would be to place them in those sort of more basic classes, and I have a bias towards those classes anyway, because like I explained yesterday, the teachers, when a student gets into 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, the teachers have very little time to, like go back and work on number sets or go back and, re-drill addition. But since we're not really beholden to anyone, we can kind of do that for the students and just really make sure that they get it and they can move on. I find that a lot of the professors, they'll get a student who's doing algebra or geometry or something at their school, but we have to keep in mind that they're doing algebra and geometry because they're in 6th and 7th grade, not because they tested out of something, or a lot of times they're still struggling with these basic skills and they don't have a real strong grasp of it, and it's going to help even though they're in a geometry class and that seems really advanced for what we're working on. We just need to remember that that it's really important for them to have those basic skills. Yeah. So that's kind of about it for that portion. I did want to just bring to everyone's attention that there were a surprising number of students who did not complete intake forms on the first day. And I know like at your sites especially, the parents are rarely if ever in there. So we just need to get that information from them. I think we gave you guys flyers for the kids to take home, little flyers. But I know I was at Sizemore and it was really hard to, manage the kids getting in there and then remember to give them their flyers to take home to remind their parents to do the intake. But we need that information and we need consent too. So that's the important part, is that the parents sign consent, which we kind of been operating for a little bit without consent, which is dangerous. We'll edit that part out.
So if the parents can't come the first week or two, we get them as soon as we can, if they're not
We could even give them,
students maybe.
give the students the intake form to take home. But just tell them, and we can even call their parents and say, if you don't get this in, we can't serve your child.
Some of the 2 girls that are going to come this Saturday weren't here this past Saturday. Their mother can come this time.
Yeah. And another option is for them to come into the office and fill out the intake form or do the assessments or anything like that.
I know these students that came in, and I told the parents they had to fill it out. They were like, well, we did that over the phone with the office. And I was like, well, no, we have to do it here on paper. I don't know how they did anything over the phone, but that's what,
Yeah, you can't sign a piece of paper over the phone. Yeah. Not yet, at least. Some cheese. So that's about it for me. Yeah, we kind of buzzed through this. I'm trying to remember what took me so long yesterday.
Acknowledge.
Because we were here until 9 o'clock yesterday.
We had a lot more people.
We had a lot more people.
There were some questions.
Yeah, and you guys have been around for a while. That's basically it. And again, it's kind of like an art more than a science. So, it looks very numbersy, but it's really just trying to use what you know about the kids already, kind of look at the numbers, and we did have a small discussion about the post-assessments last night. Typically, we've been giving sort of the same or similar similar tests as the pre-assessments for the post-assessments. But I think if we kind of appropriately pick one skill for kind of each group of students, and we just draw out that skill into, really I'm talking about the math assessment here, because the reading assessment, that's fine, the writing assessment, that's fine. But the math assessment, instead of, testing the student on who's been working on fractions on geometry, if we just created a fractions assessment that was, two pages long or something, so then we could really kind of dig in to what they learned. at the Saturday University. Someone had a really great idea, Mark from our Blue Island site. He said that what he would propose doing is like doing the diagnostic test and then sort of on the first Saturday giving sort of a short, depending on what class they're placed in, doing a short, fractions kind of two-page worksheet or something. And then on the last week giving them, another two-page worksheet just to kind of see some growth. Because the other issue is that there's such a small sample size with the math. So like if we say, okay, well, so and so got a 50% on the fractions, to start out with, and then they got a 63%. That's the difference between 1 point. It's not really compelling for funders, which is part of why Illumine brought up a good point that the pre-assessment and the post-assessment, their functions are a lot different. So the post-assessment is really to show growth. It's really kind of for funders to show growth, whereas the pre-assessment is for the diagnostic purpose to place them in the class.
So when we start a new semester, will they be taking the pre-assessment again? So it'll be kind of back-to-back weeks of assessments?
And actually, there I think maybe that like skill-specific test might help. Because then they're different tests, and the kids don't decide to sort of recognize it.
Right. If we've got, at such a point where that would become relevant, I think that if we have a returning student, that they'll be given a different sort of test than one that we ran. Ultimately, I think that would have to be our solution in that situation, so that they're not inundated with the same test.
Well, just because I know Jamie was saying this is not an ideal testing environment where you can extract data and find back-to-back testing.
Exactly.
I'm struggling a little bit with focus.
Likely, we would have to alter the exam or the examination method for a returning student as opposed to a new student.
Yeah, we might have sort of a different intake process for returning students where we, maybe have some games or something, and that could be a good draw on the first day for new students who are like, oh my god, it's okay, So, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I had a quick question. So what exactly, okay, we have this information and all this nothing. So how are we supposed to, like, when it comes to Saturday, have like an activity that we want to do, like pre-planned activities that we already know we want to do, or like how are we supposed to take this information and like actually apply it?
Yeah, and that's what I'm missing. Thank you very much. So we have the wiki, and I'm going to pull that up right now. And it's actually, Omar, I'm going to chat it to you. So I'll chat you the web address so that you can follow along. Okay, so this is the wiki page, and this is where, some of you are already pretty familiar with this. This is where most of, I think all of our activities reside, actually. And as principals, you guys can get access to, like, sort of manage the wiki and add activities. I mean, really, anybody, this is like a public thing, so anybody can pull activities from the site.
Would you mind spelling it out for the folks at home?
Oh, yeah. So the wiki is a sort of repository of all the Black Star Project activities for Saturday University. So we have a wide variety of math, reading, and writing assessments. And we tried to split them up based on these sort of skill levels that we use in the assessments. And so we tried to really make it, very diagnostic, so that if a student is in a number sense class, then, you go and find number sense, click on number sense, and then, a lot of activities come up, and you can just kind of plug those activities in. And you can look at them. they also have different, and you can see the different tags that come up. So like these are for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. These are 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade for 2nd and 3rd. You know, so you can, you know, check to see where, you know, for whom they're most appropriate. I always hesitate to kind of use those distinctions too seriously because if they're deficient on our tests, and especially with something like number sense and operations, they're not performing near grade level on those skills, you know. So don't be deterred if you see a you know, something for, you know, even for like 1st and 2nd graders, if you have like a 4th or 5th grade student, because they're games, you know, and so they can be kind of up leveled for older, more mature students. They can be made more difficult, less difficult, a lot of them. And if you're having trouble with finding an appropriate activity, if you kind of just email me, you know, the problem, then we can kind of work on it together and eliminate too. Yeah.
Did you want to actually spell the website?
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's blackstarproject.wikispaces.com. Wikispaces is WIKISPACES.com. And really feel free to add to this too. So if you have an activity that you know that works really well, you know, either email me or you can add it straight to the wiki. And you know, I know you guys are really busy and doing a lot of work, but if you could just take a minute and email me if there is an activity, it really helps the other sites. We really want this to be a repository for best practices throughout the system. And so if you know, you've kind of like cracked the code, we want to make sure that we have that information for the other sites as well. So does that answer your question, Omar?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And you know, we also have other resources in our office. We have different books and like curricular material and things like that. And you know, Illumine and I have been doing this for a while, and Dorothy does. Oh, she's gone, but Dorothy does some really great activities with kids. And so if there's anything that's like stumping you, just you know, let us know. We can figure it out for sure.
And is the idea that given these assessments, we will place kids in like just leveled groups, or like one group would be like comprehension and one group would be like, I'm just trying to figure out how, I get like how you would group them, but how does that go on in a 3-hour?
Yeah.
Well, I think if we were to take the two extremes and we diagram them both, it'll help a lot. So let's say you have a very small group of children to work with, some maybe 5 or 6 or 6 or 7. And the idea is that you take a look at these tests and their results, and you see, hopefully there's a pattern that emerges as far as what the deficiencies are. So if there is, you know, if there is a pattern where 4 out of the 7 or 4 out of the 6 students show deficiency in number sets and operations, then you want to make your focus for mathematics, for the mathematics section of your class. You want to make your focus number sets and operations for the remaining 9 weeks. And the same thing would be for the reading and writing. I think that the goal should be dividing it according to, not dividing the children so much according to level, but dividing the curriculum into skill sets that you want to focus on.
So then what about the other 2 kids?
The other 2 kids that are at level or a little bit higher, well, there's a judgment call that you have to make as to getting them engaged with activities that are a little bit, I guess, higher end in those content areas as well.
Or a different skill. So I think it's kind of both. So it could be, you know, and this is kind of why we set this up, you know, so like with the, you know, beginner students, you could have, so it doesn't have to be like number sets across the board, though it could be, you know, so if you think like, oh, well, you know, and it makes it a lot easier to have, math number sets, but if you have a group of students and you're like, okay, these kids get number sets, like we don't need to do that anymore, and they get operations, then you could have a group of students that are working, with one tutor on, fractions or decimals or something. And then these other two groups or one group could be working on number sets, or could all be the same. It really depends on the students and your flexibility or site staff and stuff like that.
Your own best judgment there, but it would be a hybrid of the two, both by skill deficiency and by overall, what level they're at.
Yeah.
You've got multiple instructors at each site, and so certainly during the math portion of your day, you can have instruction take place simultaneously between two groups. So that works out in a small setting, and then of course it would work even better in a large group. If that was the case.
Do you guys have any more questions?
I'm good.
We're good. All right, thanks for showing up, and I'll be emailing you guys I emailed you these documents, but I'll email all of you guys the documents. I think it helps to be able to kind of manipulate the data, and I think for you guys it might help to just have more data interested.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks so much for coming, guys.
You know what? I was thinking of making a series of a series of YouTube videos where I would talk a little bit about these things a little bit more in depth, so that you guys could revisit them if you have questions. Do you think that would be valuable?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I also was just thinking, I think we've talked before about how there's like different people coming in with different exposure to education, So like for instance, number sense doesn't really make sense to me, but like operations does.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a way to just do a really like simple vocabulary list.
Yeah.
But like when you keep saying number sense, I'm like, I don't exactly know what she's talking
Yeah.
about. And I'm a graduate student.
Yeah.
Like not even like a high
First know how to
schooler.
do it.
Yeah.
It's just-
Yeah.
Like does that mean whole numbers and decimals? Does that mean fractions?
Did you still have the wiki? Did you have still up so you can put up one of the sheets?
Yeah,
And
so
also,
I'm just even thinking for other individuals who are here, they might just be like, what are you? I don't actually know what I'm supposed to teach.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Let me grab one of the assessments.
Yeah.
yeah, and it is like
Yeah.
number sense is like rounding. It's kind of like knowing what numbers do.
Sure, I
and
have
what
the
they do.
skills.
No, yeah, definitely. No,
I think I want to kind of base a lot of what we do off of the assessments and be like, okay, we do a lot of problems that are like this section. of this
Yeah,
assessment.
definitely, and that's sort of how
It's
we
a good humanity resource.
So we have questions in the number sense.
digits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Round 832 to the nearest 100.
Mm.
Around 4.923 to the nearest 10. Write the name or word for this number, 143.
Right.
Place these integers in order from least to greatest, which is probably the most vital skill when it comes to number sense. Is knowing that this number is literally larger than this because it has
Which is confusing when there's like 5 digits.
exactly.
But then I think some of the
Or like
examples were like decimals.
Yeah.
And if they don't know decimals, then obviously they can't.
Right.
Yeah.
For instance, they might have a question that asks them, is 54.1 greater than or less than 300? So that's what we mean by number sense.
Yeah.
And it's great that you brought that up. This kind of terminology certainly should be.
I just know that,
expository.
that
And that's
Not
great
everyone
that
would
she
know.
even asked that. I'm sure there's so many people who
Yeah.
probably like you said, I'm a grad student, but
Yeah.
what?
Definitely.
And they don't want to ask because I'm a grad student.
Yeah, and really, I think even for us, I think we wanted to kind of get some educators and, maybe Omar could be kind of a resource for this because you're, going to school for education-ish kind of, right? So, yeah, kind of like, explaining just like the basic, really, really basic education theories, because like, I don't know.
That would be a topic of one of my videos.
because
That would be good, yeah.
and then I was talking to Caitlin the other day, and she was a high school teacher through Teach for America, and she was talking about just like, you know, there's great teachers in the city who could kind of talk about their craft and talk about what they do, and just like little tips and tricks and things that we could, you know, pay to come in and then post it on YouTube so that everyone can be privy to that information. Because like I think sometimes as instructors we get kind of like stuck in a rut, and it's not that you're not thinking, you know, creatively. It's just that, you know, if you don't have like, you know, inspiration and like constant tools, then it's tough. Yeah, but that's a good point. And I think now that we've got this like filming thing down, we could just do it so easily.
Right.
Yeah. And then you guys don't need to come all the way in here every time I have something to say.
Okay, so
Thank
again, I will.
All right, thanks Somar and Maria.
Are there any new Saturdays?
Bonsoir.
You know, I actually had some training at work. And so like he read her a story and then had her you know, tell about the story, and she actually told about the story through the patient. She was anxious because the assessment, and did you email me the pre-K assessment for the little baby?
You know I didn't, but
I'll take
here's another thing. We have assessments here,
Okay,
so like grab them. I have intake forms.
okay.
I should have intake forms. Cause upstairs I'm trying to, well, yeah. Yeah, I'll get some intake forms too.
So, yeah, that, when he read that,
Good.
when Brandon read the story, that was like, and to me, that was her assessment because,
Yeah.
yeah. But as far as math, I had K through third grade, and
Yeah, we have a pre-K.
yeah, this pre-K one I think is better for her. So, I don't think we got any more, so let me just take one more. And 6 days.
Alright.
We actually need to do the week again.
Yeah, I saw Melian didn't have some scores on there too.
She did hers, I don't know what happened, she did hers, but Malik did fifth grade.
The ones
And
that didn't really require a lot of extra materials.
There's gotta be a pattern, I think, that emerges from
No,
the
that was too easy.
on the wiki. So we're there,
But
I'll
all
develop a list of
over,
all.
like, no, you weren't.
We were just talking about like developing some type of list of like basics that I can outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Depending on the level and stuff too, you know, just like
So how's
starter
that
kit.
issue with
The books.
the books is always, and
I know last year we
Or
struggled
books
with it, but just having books.
Yeah.
Like reading books or like curriculum books.
reading books.
Yeah, we got a few.
I mean, curriculum stuff is